Hi, this is Lisa, and you are listening to I Love That Movie. This podcast is for movie lovers. It's not an unbiased opinion, it's not a straightforward review, it's just a couple people talking about a movie that they love. The format is each week I have a guest, and that guest and I discuss a movie that they love, something they're obsessed with, something they connect with. We'll talk about the plot, the director, and the actors, but we'll also talk about the personal connection my guest has with that movie. So if that sounds like something you want to listen to, keep listening. Hey, this is Lisa, and if you want to catch up with me on X or Twitter, you can find me at ILTM Podcast. I'm also on Blue Sky at ILTM Podcast, and I have an Instagram at I Love That Movie Podcast. And lastly, we have a Patreon. So if you want to support me on there, you can. Show's always free, but if you want to support us, that's at patreon.com/I Love That Movie. And if you like what you hear today, please subscribe and rate the show. It does help new listeners find us. And I have a new voice on the podcast. I have Phil Walsh. Say hi, Phil.
Hey, how are you guys?
Doing well. Since this is your first time on, would you mind introducing yourself just a little bit?
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Lisa, for having me on. As I said
Absolutely.
off air, been a fan of your show for a while, so this is a lot of fun on my
Excellent.
end. But yes, I host a weekly movie podcast where I pretty much talk about my love of movies. Lately, the focus has been on sort of movies of the week, so a lot of new releases. But occasionally, I'll revisit a classic or a cult film, or especially around Halloween time. There's always plenty of scary movies to talk about, so that's always a major plus. But my motto is simple: for the love of movies, and I try to keep that philosophy for each and every show.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for listening, first of all, and thank you for being so flexible. As as my listeners probably know, I haven't been recording as often over this last year. It's just been very busy. So really appreciate your patience and me getting back with you, and love your background there. I can see, I know our listeners can't see this, but I can see all those movie posters back there. So clearly you love film as much as I do, and that's wonderful. Um, so if this is your first time listening to the show, listeners, my guest always picks the movie. So Phil, what movie did you choose to talk about today?
So when you first put this out there, I really had to think about it because I mean, trying to pick a favorite movie, I mean, that we could be here all day and all night. But I went back kind of into my own personal archives, and kind of timely given where we are at this time and point of the year. And I have chosen for today's discussion Batman Returns.
Yes, I do think it's a little bit time. Well, number one, this is like the third or fourth Batman movie we've talked about on
No.
here, which is awesome. I had to like double check and make sure we hadn't talked about this movie before. But love it. You know, we love Batman on this podcast. We love superhero films. But you're right. I mean, that was going to be one of my questions for you. Is this a Christmas movie, in
Oh,
your opinion?
absolutely.
I
It,
agree.
it, if
Yeah.
Die Hard is a Christmas movie, this is very much a Christmas movie.
It checks at least that first box, right? It happens during Christmas, so
Bingo.
I love that. That's perfect for this season. That's wonderful. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So if you're listening and you have not seen Batman Returns, I would pause here and go watch it because we are going to talk all about it. But if you're still listening, and you want to listen anyway, whether you've seen it or not, I'm going to do a quick intro and then we'll kind of dive into some fun questions about the film. So, set during Christmas, as Phil said, in Gotham City, this film follows Batman as he confronts the corrupt business owner Max Schreck and crime boss Oswald Cobblepot, aka the Penguin, whose bid for power threatens the city. Their schemes are further complicated by Schreck's former secretary Selina Kyle, who seeks revenge. And that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Um, I usually share a couple of quick facts about the movie, so I'll just share a couple quickly, and then we'll dive into a few more questions. This production wanted to use king penguins, but the only tame ones in captivity were at a bird sanctuary in the deep in the English countryside. So the birds were actually flown over to the States in a refrigerated hold of a plane, and they were given their own refrigerated trailer, swimming pool, tons of fresh ice every day, had fresh fish delivered from the docks, and even the temperature outside was 100 degrees because of where they're filming this, but the entire set was refrigerated to 35 degrees, so the birds had like a bodyguard, excellent care. And apparently they could tell that they were happy during their stay because some of them, I guess, mated and had baby penguins, and that's just so adorable. So this is in an age, like, I feel like today those penguins would probably be CG, so that's pretty impressive.
I mean, that's just one of the many charms of this movie is that
Yeah.
there's so much practical effects. I mean, I think there's maybe a
Yes.
little bit of, I guess we might call early CGI or
Hmm.
advanced animation with some of the bats that are flying around, but 9 out of 10, this is all for real. Which, we certainly there's always that fondness for, particularly as movies become more and more uh, computer generated, shall we say, in the last 30 plus years. So there's definitely a real craftsmanship that you can see just in the details with this movie.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I understand and for the most part support the CG animals because it's very hard to get animals to act, right? They're not trained actors, and there's some safety issues involved. If I worry about the animal's safety and things like that, so I'm okay with it. But this is really charming, and it is nice to know the animals were taken care of. And like you said, I mean, there is, at least for now, there's an obvious difference between practical effects and CG for the most part. And some of them can be really good, but it's hard to replace something that's real, and that is one of the charms of this film for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I also read that Danny DeVito was advised by his friend Jack Nicholson, aware of his financial success with Batman, to take the role of the Penguin, which is interesting to me because, as we know, as the story goes in the first one, Jack did want to do it and had to be actually kind of wooed and promised things and got a really good deal out of that first movie. But I guess by the time the second one comes around, he's like, hey, Danny, like, this is a good film career move. Do it.
It's sort of funny, especially given that they're friends in real life. So there's sort of that kind of interesting partnership, if you will, the Joker and the Penguin, sort of passing the proverbial torch to one another.
Yes.
But no, I mean, Jack Nicholson certainly, was laughing all the way to the bank with the first Batman movie, and it would make sense even just from a practical standpoint, why you would want to do a movie of this nature. It wasn't like the first film where it was sort of a trial by fire, and well, is this going to work? Is it not going to work? Kind of a thing.
Yeah, and I think also Tim Burton seems to really focus on the villain of the movie, I think, more than Batman. So maybe he's like, hey, like, you're going to get a lot of screen time, you're going to get to camp it up and make a lot of money. I think he learned from that first one for sure. But yeah, I would agree with that. In speaking of talking about the look of the film kind of being grounded, obviously this was another, I think, endearing thing about the Tim Burton movies is the fact that they're like all on a set. Um, and the massive Gotham sets were constructed to be mobile and were often shifted between days of filming, which I think kind of gives the whole movie almost like a theater-like quality to it,
It's
like a
interesting
play. Yeah.
because a lot of times you'll hear, particularly with the later two Batman films in this canon, if you will, Batman Forever, Batman and Robin, of kind of having either a toyetic approach or very much a look like they're shot on a sound stage. And even though Batman Returns and Batman '89 were shot on primarily on stages, there is something. authentic to the way this Gotham City, this world works. And I don't know if that's just the Tim Burton signature, if you will, but there's just something about when you watch this movie. Yes, it is almost like a live theater in a way, but
Hmm.
it does feel grounded. Whereas if it's like, okay, this could be happening in the streets of New York or something like that in a very stylized way, but it never feels claustrophobic, if that makes sense.
I would agree with that. It doesn't feel like too small. It's not like you feel like you're in one room. There's different locations, and I also think, to your point, I'm kind of building off what you said about Gotham. Um, in some of the newer movies, Gotham City doesn't feel like as much of a character, I guess because it doesn't look as highly stylized as these Tim Burton films, and I kind of miss that about it. Like I like for my Gotham to feel like its own character in a movie. So I would agree with that. Yeah.
Oh no, I mean, look, anyone who knows me and has listened to my show over the years knows, I will stand Christopher Nolan in the Dark Knight trilogy
Oh
until the
yeah,
end of
I love
time.
that film.
But there's something about the Tim Burton Gotham City that we've never seen since, and I probably are never going to see again. There's just something very stylized and artistic to what Burton was able to bring from the pages of the comic books and put onto the screen that I don't think any other director since is going to follow that. And even with the current films, I think that's just it's very much in the Tim Burton wheelhouse.
Yeah, it's kind of like a little bit how when you watch like a Guillermo del Toro film, like it's very stylized. It's got a specific look, an artistic direction that's unique to him, and I think Tim Burton is similar in that way, especially with some of his older work.
Uh, Christopher Nolan could not have made Batman Returns.
Right.
Tim
He
Burton could
wouldn't
not
have.
have made The Dark
He
Knight.
wouldn't have wanted
It's
to.
very much
Yeah.
everybody's in their lane, sort of thing.
I agree. I agree with that. Well, when did you first see this movie? Like how did you see it? What format? And when did you see it?
So I probably saw it when I was probably a lot younger than I probably should have been. But I mean, I grew up watching Batman. I grew up, frankly, seeing Jaws at like age 4 or 5. So like, kind of the walls were already broken down at this point. But the first time that I actually saw Batman Returns, it was on like an NBC Sunday night movie of the week type deal. And I remember my mom recorded it because it was going to be on at like 8 or 9 o'clock, and for some reason, we were afraid I was going to fall asleep or something to it. But I was up the entire time, just glued to the screen. And even though it was edited for TV, I just remember immediately saying, "Okay, I'm glad we recorded this because I want to watch this again." And having enjoyed the first Batman film, this one just hit me on a whole different level. And looking back on it now, I mean, there's a lot of probably factors that might have contributed to it, but I just remember being so enamored with the world that was there. And plus it was set at Christmas time, and like when you're kind of a kid, like seeing a Christmas themed Batman movie is kind of like the hat trick, if you will. And so that was definitely another aspect. But I just remember loving the world. Obviously, Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman was perfect to say the least. But I just remember thinking like this is so much better than the first film. And again, like you're trying to like you can't
Mm.
articulate that as like 5 or 6 years old, but like you just have that gut feel like I just want to go watch this movie again and again. And I never really had that feeling with the first Batman movie, even though I enjoyed it. This just for some reason it connected with me on a whole different level.
I mean, I think compared to the first one, like the first one to me is sort of Tim Burton kind of testing the waters a little bit. And then by the second one, I mean, he's really going full Tim Burton. And I think he kind of, it's more stylized. It's more, yeah, it's like a little bit more magical. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but I could see specifically how that would appeal to someone who's younger more than the first one. The first one, I think by comparison, would seem a little drier, a little more serious. So yeah, I mean, I'm trying to remember how I felt when I first saw it. I know I really liked 1989 Batman because weirdly, like I think I remember really liking the Joker. Just maybe because I like Jack Nicholson. I don't know. Like I'm trying to remember my headspace at that time. But I also watched this one a lot, and I think probably equally enjoyed it. But I imagine I probably return to this one more, and I don't know specifically why that would be at the time, but I really liked both of them. So I completely understand that. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that Batman '89 is almost an event movie,
Hmm.
whereas this is more of a movie or a film. If you get really highbrow and sophisticated, there's something more original about this particular film. There's more of a story going on.
Yeah.
The first film, it's a lot of set pieces. It's more just the phenomenon of Batman finally being on the big screen in a dark, gritty way that wasn't like the TV show with Adam West. This felt like, of the two films, this is Tim Burton's statement on Batman, Gotham City, the whole mythos. And I think that's why it seems a little bit more personal in a way. And I would even argue that's why this film has aged better than
Mm.
89, which again, I mean, I know people hold it up as the first film, and rightfully so, but I think when you put the two side by side, there really is no comparison in my eyes, which is the better film.
Yeah, I think creatively, Tim Burton got to have even more control over this film after he proved himself with the first one. And so there does seem to be a lot more world building and character development. I think the villains are a little bit more nuanced and interesting, so I can totally see that. Is this like, we've talked a little bit about your experience like first seeing the movie and why you like it. Um as far as from a director standpoint, like is this your favorite Tim Burton film? Are you a big fan of his other work?
Oh, hands down, absolutely. Uh, I'm also big fan of Tim Burton, but yeah, I think this is his masterpiece.
Nice.
Again, the guy has done so many wonderful
Hmm.
and, and beautifully weird films over the years, but I think this is the one that if I was going to make a capstone to Tim Burton, this would be, I think, the perfect statement because it really does check all the Tim Burton boxes. It's got the gothic aesthetic, it's got the Christmas winter setting, it's got the commentary on isolation, melancholy, etc. Sort of the battle of the freaks. It really is everything you'd want from a Tim Burton movie that just so happens to also be a Batman comic book movie.
Yeah, well, we've talked about Tim Burton a lot on this show, so we are fans. I like a lot of his movies. I think my favorite's probably always going to be Ed Wood.
Oh,
Um,
that's
but
a good choice. That
but I mean, I would put this up there with some of my favorites. I mean, I also really love, Beetlejuice and Edward Scissorhands. Like he's just got so many to choose from, but I agree that this has like even though it's a Batman movie, it has the hallmarks of like this is what a Tim Burton film is. Again, I think because he had more creative control, so I could totally see that. Well, do you want to talk a little bit about the cast next?
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, where does one begin? I mean, obviously you've got Michael Keaton coming back to the role, which I mean, I know again people hold up the first film. I think this is Keaton's best performance as Batman, and even though he was back for uh, the infamous Flash movie a couple of years
Hmm.
ago, I think this film, heads and shoulders, is his best work. But I mean, Danny DeVito as the Penguin. I mean, let's just stop and unpack that one because I mean that's like picture perfect casting just in every regard. But you talk about a performance that I think is still held up as kind of like the version of the Penguin in the same way as Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman. I think there's just something about what they were able to do with this movie and kind of almost sort of like throw caution to the wind with regards to the quote mythology, even though these are maybe not comic book accurate interpretations of Penguin or Catwoman. I think it's very much in the spirit, and I think that's why they've continued to endure and hold up in people's imaginations 30 plus years later.
Yeah, I have to tell you, like the first time I saw Penguin, and it could be because I was so young when I first saw this movie, I found Danny DeVito's performance like shocking. Like at times I was scared. At times I was like grossed out, but I kept watching and I enjoyed it. And I think over the years it's such an interesting take on Oswald Cobblepot. It's so different from any other take. Where I'm both, again, kind of grossed out by, but also very empathetic and I don't know, just all those things at once. It's a lot. And it's interesting and very, I think it's one of Danny DeVito's most unique performances. I don't know that he's ever had another performance like this.
I mean, obviously he's wearing tons of makeup, prosthetics, etc.,
Sure.
but you never see Danny DeVito. Like, even though Jack Nicholson is covered in pancake makeup, even putting aside the scenes where he's wearing the flesh colored makeup, you still kind of see Nicholson
Oh,
in a way.
it's just Nicholson as the
Yeah, I
Joker.
gotta.
Like it's just him. Like
Yeah,
it's
no, I mean,
great, but
no,
it's
yeah.
just Jack Nicholson. Yeah, I agree.
Whereas like Danny DeVito, it's like you almost have to like do a double take. Like, wow, that's Danny DeVito as the Penguin. Like you never see
Yeah.
him; you just see the Penguin.
And I would agree with what you said about Michelle Pfeiffer's performance as well as Catwoman, because again, it's a very unique take, and it's probably, I mean, as far as movies go, I think hers is probably still my favorite portrayal, although I did like the recent The Batman, and what the actress was able to do with that character. Like, I thought more similar to how she's kind of portrayed now. But what Michelle Pfeiffer did with this character, she's got a different origin, obviously, from the comics. It's a little bit more mystical and it's more tragic and she's someone on the path for revenge, but it's also just done really well. And the look is, again, going back to kind of what this is a Tim Burton movie, like what he did with her look as well. It's just so iconic at this point.
I mean, I think Michelle Pfeiffer, of all the Burton villains, she's probably the one that has the biggest staying power in a lot of ways. I think it's just because, I mean, Catwoman is so integral to the Batman dynamic that when you have a performance like that is so show stopping, like you just sit up and take notice to it. I mean, in a world where these movies were taken more seriously, if you will, vis-a-vis acting recognition. Like Michelle Pfeiffer in another world should have been nominated for at least something for
Yeah.
that performance. It's a complete transformation, and she has to do so much. I mean, because it's a role where you could either lean way too much into the kind of the campy elements, or kind of lean so much into kind of the crazed, vengeance filled, woman on a a murder spree, and she kind of finds that balance between being both sympathetic and deadly at the same time.
Yeah, completely agree. There's other people in the movie too, like Christopher Walken as Max Schreck, which it's kind of funny, like when sometimes when you see a movie when you're younger and then you get a little bit older and rewatch it and you're like, oh, wait a minute, that's Christopher Walken. Like, I did not know who he was at the time of seeing this movie. He fits perfectly into this world. He's not necessarily, he and, Michelle Pfeiffer, they're not really part of the, I guess, like, stable of actors that Tim Burton typically uses the way that he did with Danny DeVito, but he certainly blends into his world very easily.
And that's something that I don't think gets enough appreciation with the storyline here, because I know a lot of critics like to say, "Oh, it's underdeveloped," or "There's too much focus on Penguin, Catwoman," or "Why is Max Schreck there?" And I've always thought that each of these characters, Penguin, Catwoman, Max Schreck, represent kind of the three sides of Bruce Wayne in a lot of ways, and Batman.
Ooh.
You have the on the one hand, you have the sort of deformed freak who's trying to reconcile the fact that he doesn't have his parents. That is very much Batman. You have Selena Kyle, Catwoman, out on a revenge crazed mission. Again, very similar to the path that Bruce and Batman are on. And then you have Max Schreck, who is the corrupt businessman, sort of the
Yeah.
antithesis of Bruce Wayne. And I think that's something that doesn't always get enough attention, that there really is this larger reflection of Batman seeing himself in each of these three characters, and kind of realizing there's only so much he can do, or sort of, if he goes in one direction, he ends up like Selena. If he ends up in another direction, he ends up like Max Schreck, or the Penguin. And it's all about kind of walking that fine balance between justice and vengeance. And I think that's a I don't think that was a an accident with the way this story was concocted. So, like, to sort of tie it back to that, I think everybody has like a role to play. Even a character like Max Schreck, where you kind of think, okay, what the hell's Christopher Walken doing here? I think there was all a purpose to it.
Yeah, I've never heard that theory, but I really like it. I would also say it's impossible for the Penguin to become completely assimilated without a Max Schreck. Like, he's the kind of vehicle that he would need an inside person to like elevate him in society. So in that way, I thought he was really important. And then I think also the dynamic, obviously, with Selena Kyle, like, he's part of her origin story in this film, so you definitely need him in your movie. I also always forget that Paul Rubens is in this, and his dad in the movie. So it's a quick performance in the beginning, but I really like that part of the film.
Yeah, that opening always freaked me out, just because, like, when you put the penguin inside the little cage and he eats the cat. I mean, not that I agree with any of the complaints that came out from the moms and the parents who were pushing out their 12-year-old sons to make political statements. But I mean, that scene definitely is a traumatizing way to start
Yeah,
any movie, but
it's
especially
dark.
a Batman movie. Okay, kill the cat.
I know. I wonder what people like when this movie first came out were thinking. They're like, "What? What am I watching? What's happening?" Like before it really gets into it. But yeah, it is. It's again like I remember being shocked like the first time I saw this, but also really liking it and like really liking Danny DeVito's Penguin. So obviously for me it was pretty effective. Um I guess we've talked a little bit about the cast. Is there anybody else in the cast we haven't mentioned yet that you were like hoping to touch on?
I'll just say Michael Goth, I think, was underappreciated
Mm.
as Alfred.
Oh, I know. I loved his Alfred.
I mean, again, he was a great actor in his own right, but I don't think he gets enough praise or due for what he did as Alfred.
I mean, he was that character for the longest, right? Like I don't know that anybody else has been, that consistent. I know Michael Caine was in, a couple of the movies, but or in three, but I mean, he survived through multiple directors, really.
No, he's kind of the one through line from Burton to Schumacher. So no, he's underappreciated, and I would even go as far as say underrated. And I like that they give him more to do in this film, as opposed to
Yeah.
just sort of standing in the background with just like a snappy wit or something. There's more. Alfred feels more like a team player here.
Yeah, more of an equal, less of a butler and more of, like you said, team player. Um, well, let's talk a little bit about some of your favorite scenes from the movie.
I mean, first off, I just love the fact that this is a Christmas movie, and I hope we get more, down the road of like a Batman film set at
Yes.
winter or Christmas time. 'Cause there's just something about the city with the snow and all of that. It's just a nice aesthetic. But I really love the beginning of this movie. It is just madcap chaos with clowns running around at Christmas time, jumping out of boxes, and of course you've got Batman showing up to save the day, and it's very much a no nonsense beginning. Like we are thrown right into it, and with another director it may not have worked, but again, Tim Burton kind of has that license where he can make even the most out of the box kind of situation
Yeah.
plausible and believable.
Yeah, completely agree. It is a surprising opening, and it's really well done.
It's a perfect way to start it because I mean you get to see all of our main players, even though we didn't get to see the Penguin until Shrek pops up or pops down into the sewer.
Right.
But just again, everybody is sort of introduced. We see Selena, we see Batman, we get Shrek. Like the whole dynamic is right there in that opening, and there was a lot of ground covered that doesn't feel like an exposition dump. It's sort of naturally woven into the story, which I definitely appreciate.
Yeah, I mean, there's a risk in the beginning of a movie as you're setting it up that it can feel, like you said, like an exposition dump. But I agree, it's like woven in such a way that it kind of just leads into the next part of the film. It leaves you wanting to learn more about those characters.
And I sort of love how there is this immediate question about the penguin sewer man, like this sort of like whispers. It almost feels like a callback to like a universal horror movie in a way, with like people running around, handing out newspapers. Is he real? Is he a myth?
Yeah, I
That's
haven't
a nice
thought of that,
touch.
but you're right.
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
sort of Universal Monster-esque.
yeah, it's very again, it's subtle, but you just sort of can kind of have to wonder if that was the direction where they were sort of leaning to or trying to imply with the penguin.
Yeah, I think you're onto something for sure.
I've definitely spent a lot of time, probably too much, analyzing this
I
film.
love it. That's why we're here. So
Well, no,
tell me
exactly.
more.
That's right. No, we'll be here all night. No, no, there's so many other moments, even just like sort of just like awkward, funny moments. Like there's that part in the Batcave where um, Bruce is sort of doing his investigation on the Penguin because he automatically assumes there's something up with this guy. Nobody does a good deed in Gotham City without there being strings attached. And Alfred serves him soup, and it's fishy Suarez, and the fact that Bruce has no idea that it's supposed to be cold. I mean, outside of it being a funny little moment between Bruce and Alfred, I just love that they just sort of play with the fact that Bruce Wayne is just so far removed from the world, and sort of like
Yeah.
just like basic stuff that someone in his uh world would know, that he just is so consumed with where he is. Like Bruce Wayne is clearly just the disguise here.
I think it makes him a little bit more relatable too, because I think if you lean too much into his billionaire side, that makes him less relatable. So him kind of being so obsessed with being Batman that he doesn't know some of these high society things, like that makes him more endearing too.
Yeah, and there's another scene where I just always remember laughing as a kid because it just was like, it just seemed like just such a real moment when after he's first encountered Catwoman and he's just sitting down the Batcave and he picks up the telephone to call Alfred. It was like, bring down the antiseptic ointments, and then he takes, the claw out of the suit and is like, meow. I just thought that was just a funny, like, like okay, you gotta get to see what Bruce and Batman does in his like solo time.
Yep. I know. He's a little bit odd, but
Oh yeah, no,
that's why we like him.
exactly. No, he's a lovable weirdo.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I kind of really liked that about Keaton's performance that I don't think is in some of the other Batman performances. Maybe a little bit in what Pattinson's doing now, but like leaning into him as being a little bit more of an outsider. I don't know. I like that more than like, I don't know, the George Clooney version, you know?
Yeah, George. Well, we could do a whole separate podcast on George
Uh-oh. Yeah.
Batman, but I mean, he's still apologizing for it, so there's that, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so.
No, Keaton brought I think if anything, he brought a sense of humor to the role, which again, it's not like an Adam West, running around giving speeches or dancing in the Batcave kind of a thing, but it's very subtle. Like it's almost a dry wit, not like a winking at the camera, but he's very self-aware in a lot of ways, but yet he leans into just the absurdity of the fact that I mean this guy is completely out of his mind. I mean he's running around in a leather suit, beating up criminals with his bare hands.
Yep. I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
Very true.
not a normal,
Not a normal thing to do. I've always liked that about the kind of Batman mythos. He's one of the only characters that they question that you question that with him. Like we don't have these thoughts about Spider-Man or any other like superhero, but that's kind of what I like about Batman.
It makes it more relatable.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, do you have any favorite scenes?
I remember really liking all the scenes with Catwoman and the Penguin. I think every time we're with them, I'm more invested. And I know I watched this movie fairly recently in the last couple of years. I was on another podcast where we talked about this movie, and I just found Catwoman's like origin story so interesting, and it's fun to go back and watch that now that I'm older and just think about how I don't know, like how I like the transition of her from Selena Kyle to Catwoman, the way her personality changes, the way she stands up to Max. That all those scenes stick with me. Also, that scene with the claws where she like, carves that circle. Like, there's so many like I think iconic moments with her character.
Oh yeah, I mean, we could be here all night just talking about each moment with her. I really love the scene at the end where both Batman and her take off their masks, for lack of a better phrase, and it
Yeah,
really kind of gets to the whole heart of the argument of what is the right way to go about this. And I love that there's sort of that personal reckoning that Batman has with kind of realizing he's going down or he's gone down the path that Selena's going on. And he's almost trying to pull her back, but she's too far gone at this point. And then you get that just iconic moment with her with the electric
that part was so wild.
it's just like again like in a kids movie.
Yes, I know. And it's almost like, she has, I mean, they never really explain it, but like she dies, right? And, she gets killed and then she comes back to life from the cats. And it's almost like I'm trying to think about my metaphors here. Maybe I'm just influenced because I just watched that Frankenstein movie, but it kind of reminds me of that a little bit with all the stitching and you're kind of it's kind of like she's back to life, but she's kind of different now. Um and I almost felt like at the end when she does that, she's kind of like I'm dead anyway, and so I'm going to do this again. Although at the very very end, she kind of comes back, right? So it doesn't kill her, but I don't know, there's something, and maybe I'm thinking too of that Universal monster stuff you said earlier, like there's something going on with that. Again, a half-formed thought, but something there. I don't know.
I mean, I like in a lot of ways that they don't over explain it. Whereas I feel like if this movie
Yeah.
was released today, you'd have 10,000 subreddits and people screaming and moaning on Twitter about, well, that doesn't make sense. Well, how come she's alive? Or what? How does this work? Cats bring her back to life. I mean, and maybe there was more sophistication on an audience part 30 years ago where people just sort of accepted things or sort of read into the details of it instead of having it be spoon fed or told right there in black and white. But I like that they don't go overboard with trying to rationalize it. It's kind of in the same way of like the fact that a bunch of penguins, pretty much raised the penguin. Like it's very much left to the imagination. And again, that's a whole other discussion. But I kind of wish movies would go back to that in a way where
Yeah.
it's not just we have to like beat you over the head with, okay, here's what happens X, Y, and Z.
I mean, that argument about like explain it kind of annoys me because there's no explanation that's going to be good enough. It still is impossible. So, like, one example would be I saw a video recently where someone was talking about with space travel, like in Star Trek or Dune or whatever. Like, it's magic, okay? Like, they can say it's a warp core, they can say it's, crystals, they can say whatever they want, but the reality is it's magic. Like, no matter how much they explain it to you, it's not real. And so, in some ways, I agree with you. I think nowadays they would be like, oh, well, actually, there's this grounded technological reason why she becomes Catwoman. But, like, even if you do that, it doesn't really make sense and it doesn't need to. Like, bring back, the Joker fell in a vat of acid. Like, this is comic books. It's okay for things to not have like a grounded, realistic reason for why they happen. You don't necessarily need explanation. Sometimes the mystery helps.
Oh, absolutely. Again, less is more. And, to tie it back to that point of her coming back to life at the ending, I always loved the fact that that was like a last minute decision by Tim Burton, that he just wanted her to be in there. And I guess there was some maybe pressure from the studio because at the time they thought, oh, it would be fun to have a Catwoman spinoff, but obviously that didn't happen as a result of this movie. But I like that she shows up at the very end. I think just stylistically, it's a cool way to end the movie, but it again kind of plays into that mystery and the mystique of the supernatural and the power of cats and nine lives, and it kind of leaves you wanting more.
I agree, and I also feel like if both the Penguin and Catwoman die at the end, I mean, these are really important characters in the Rogues Gallery. I think that's maybe a little bit too morbid if like every villain we see has this like horrible death. So I kind of like the idea of like one of them being alive at the end.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. You can't have too many people die in a kids movie.
Yeah, it's like there's already a lot of trauma here. Let's have someone live.
There's noses getting bitten off, so
Yeah.
got to draw the line somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I remember thinking like Max Shrek's death scenes like so scary. It's almost like, you know, not quite you know, Indiana Jones level of horrifying face melting, but it's close. It's pretty graphic. So like we don't want all three of those characters to die. Like I like that she lives at the end.
Got to save Catwoman at the very
Yeah,
least.
save one of them. Yeah.
That's
What's
curiosity
another
did not kill the cat.
exactly? What's another, if there's not another specific scene that you want to discuss, is there like music or something that we haven't touched on yet that you wanted to kind of talk about with the film?
Well, I mean, you have, of course, Danny Elfman back.
Yes.
Tim Burton's other muse for many of his projects, and again, much like everything else in this film, I think Elfman is firing on all cylinders
Hmm.
and delivers an even better score than what he did in the first film. I think there's just, again, I think leaning into the Christmas
Yeah.
aesthetic kind of allows more of that gothic, ominous, wintry feel, and that just seems very natural. A progression for the music, where you kind of take the themes of the original film and you just crank it up to like a 25, and it just feels like everything is just heightened in the best possible way. The music being kind of the piece that ties it all together.
Yeah, I like when Christmas is a little spooky, and when you think about it, our modern conception of Christmas started kind of spooky with A Christmas Carol, literally having ghosts in it. So I feel like it makes sense in a gothic setting for it to be like Christmas. And I agree with you. I think Danny Elfman's score is so iconic. I mean, I dare say the best one. Like, it just is Batman for me. I mean, when you think about like these two movies, the animated series, like, yeah, it's the best. And he has done so many, iconic Christmas or Christmas adjacent scores, like with Home Alone and then Harry Potter. Like I've been to like a John Williams, Christmas symphony event before here in Dallas. So I mean, like it's just iconic. It just adds to the story. It's almost kind of like Gotham City. It's like another character could be the score, really.
Now, I mean, music is always an integral part to any story, but especially here. I mean, what Danny Elfman is able to do, just in a lot of ways, it almost acts as like a fifth character in the entire piece. Which, uh, in the best of movies, the music will always enhance, and you hear that even in a movie that's criticized, like the music is never something that people will nitpick. And I think, whether or not, people, love or hate this film, I think the music, at least people are like, yeah, this is a damn good score.
Yeah. Um, One other thought I had that I was thinking that I want to make sure I mention too is that with the character of the penguin, um, it hits different at like watching that now that I'm older. Just when he's trying to like run for mayor and like be
Mm.
accepted, and how like unacceptable he is to the like the upper class in the film and society as a whole. It feels a lot more like sad to me and like more tragic than when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I couldn't really pick up on that nuance, but that's another aspect that I kind of like about this portrayal of the penguin.
It's interesting because they really capture public sentiment in this film, which again, when you're watching it as a kid, you don't, you're right, you don't pick up on the subtlety or the nuance, but you sort of see a character like the penguin emerge, and at first, he's talked in whispers, people are terrified of him, but then he does something heroic, and he becomes the flavor of the month, so to speak, the poster boy for what people are projecting uh, their hopes and dreams on. And then when everything else changes, when new information comes to light, and even though, in the case of the film, it's negative, and it was, of course, the penguin's own words coming back to bite him, but it, kind of on a deeper level, you sort of see how quickly um, the public will change on a dime. Once they sort of grow tired of you, or find something else to sort of fester on, or rally around. And there is something real inherently tragic about that, especially because again, you separate uh, the megalomania and the and the psychotic tendencies of the penguin. I mean, this is a really sad individual who just, at his core, I think, wanted to be accepted by the world, by society, and even though he had it for a moment, it was never really there.
Yeah, I'm thinking of that scene right where he's like eating the fish. I think he like
Yeah.
in front of everybody, and everybody is like horrified and disgusted. And you're in. I just had a thought of like it's never gonna work. Like even though, like you said, he has this brief window where he's like a hero, he's not going to be accepted even in the perfect circumstance. Even when someone is vouching for him, he's not going to fit in, which I feel like really speaks to that outsider quality that like all Tim Burton movies have. There's a lot of themes about being ostracized, about not being included. It's just something that he's done really, really well in a lot of his movies. And so yes, you're right. I mean, he's a murderer, so it's he's a maniac. It's never going to be, but even in those moments where like let's say you remove that aspect, it was never going to happen for him, and that hits sadder than like when I was a kid and I saw it for sure. I think you're totally right.
Well, and it's also the aspect of the fact that Max Schreck, the so-called respectable businessman, clean cut, everybody knows him. Again, just on paper and just kind of looking in the mirror, someone like that, you think, why isn't he running for mayor? And obviously, he has his own machinations, but at the same time, the fact that it's him putting up the deformed freak as opposed to himself either fielding another candidate or himself throwing his hat into the ring kind of speaks to the public's fascination with what's the new shiny object. And
Yeah.
clearly Max Schreck, for all his wealth and money and power, is kind of yesterday's news in a lot of ways. He can still command attention, but not in the same way as the Penguin Man.
Yeah, you kind of wonder if, Tim Burton is making a comment about the film industry or fame or like what he's trying to kind of portray with some of that messaging.
I mean, that's the one of the beauties of this film, where you can watch it through every character's viewpoint. I mean, you
Oh,
can
that's
watch it
true.
just as a straightforward gothic comic book movie. You can watch it as the Penguin's tragic journey. You can watch it as an empowerment story through Catwoman. I mean, there's a lot of different lenses here, as opposed to it just being another silly comic book movie. There's something more here buried beneath the snow that I think more and more people are starting to realize, and have realized as has gone on. This is not just another comic book movie, but something much more intimate and personal, and frankly more of a statement than a lot of modern day comic book movies, which just tend to feel
Yeah.
like regurgitations of the same stuff over and over again.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Is there anything, like any scenes we haven't covered yet or any aspects of the film that you haven't gotten to talk about?
I would add that I love that this feels, well, I shouldn't say it feels, it is the anti-Christmas movie.
Mm.
This is, again, I said at the beginning, I think it's a Christmas movie through and through, but it's not a Christmas movie in the conventional set.
Oh, definitely not. Yeah.
This is not a movie where, Batman, gets a happy ever after. We're not sitting around Wayne Manor singing Christmas carols at the end of the movie. It's a movie that kind of spotlights a lot of things that go on during the holiday season that tend to kind of get overlooked in movies or
Mm.
specials, which is sort of the melancholy aspect, the loneliness, the isolation, the kind of you know feeling of dread that some people might have at this time of
Yeah.
year. And I think that's something that kind of goes underappreciated, that this is shining a spotlight on the different side of a Christmas movie. This is not a Christmas
Wow.
Story. It's not Christmas Vacation or It's a Wonderful Life, but kind of sort of showing the mirror aspect of, what goes on for, maybe the less fortunate, or someone who maybe, can't get through the holiday season with all the hustle and the bustle. And it's more of a depressing time of year. I mean, think of just Bruce Wayne, for example. I mean, the guy has no family outside of Alfred. His whole world is Batman. In this film, he loses Selena Kyle. I mean, he starts alone, he ends alone. I mean, it's very much a circle in a lot of ways. And I kind of like that this movie doesn't give you all the traditional bells and whistles. And uh, I mean, again, there was another script written before Burton decided to take it in his own direction, which would have felt more like a continuation of the first film. And the way that film ended, besides including Robin and the whole thing, it was very much like It's a Wonderful Life type ending with, Batman and Vicky Vale and marriage proposals and, everybody sitting around the Christmas tree at Wayne Manor. And I mean, that's a whole different movie, but that's not this world. And I kind of like that this goes against the conventional wisdom for what we usually associate with a Christmas movie, which is, peace on earth, happiness, we all live happily ever after.
I have to be honest and say I've never thought about that with this movie, but you're right. I mean, The holidays can be a very, very difficult time of year for a lot of people. And it is interesting to think about Batman. Like you said, he doesn't have a family. In fact, he lost a family, so probably holidays are difficult. And this movie kind of leans into that, like you said. I also think it kind of showcases the maybe dark side of the spectacle around Christmas, I think, with some of the like penguin Christmassy imagery where it's like this big pageantry, but it's also like scary and unsettling and that's interesting. That's an interesting space to be in. I don't think a lot of movies talk about or think about that at all.
Oh no, I mean, like today you would never probably get this movie past the initial writing stage. I mean, I think literally people would say, "Oh, this is way too dark to put on screen,"
Yeah.
which is a shame in a lot of ways because I feel you kind of have to. I mean, not always overdo it, but you have to have that balance. Everything can't be glossy and Netflixized or whatnot. You know, it's got to kind of have I think, an important balance as opposed to just being like, overly cheerful all the time and kind of, happy
Yeah.
go lucky.
I think the pendulum kind of swings, with our society of what we focus on, and it tends to reflect what's happening. I feel like when times are tough, happier films tend to do better. And I think that's part of it. But I also think the film industry's changed so much to where it's highly competitive. It's hard to get movies out there. It's hard. Like it's weird because there's millions of movies, right, coming out, but it's hard to get people to the theater. And it's almost like studios are scared to take a gamble on something that isn't going to, you're not going to leave feeling good. So like a lot of movies feel really good, especially with IP like Batman. So I think you're right. I don't know that today, as much as they say or give directors like their own creative freedom, I don't know that they would greenlight something like this today. That's a really good point.
Yeah, I mean, just from the standpoint of biting noses, I mean, or killing the cat in the first 5 minutes.
Right,
That
right.
isn't going to happen today. I mean, we could debate whether or not that's a good or a bad thing, but at the same time, like I think when you start limiting artistic expression in any form, it has kind of like a downstream effect where, all right, well then all right, we'll cut here or we'll hold
Yeah.
back here instead of go into the fullest extent.
Yeah, and like you're saying, it's not like I'm laying any blame here, but it is noticeable that things are different and for better for worse, for sure. And I do prefer when there's more creative freedom so that we can, I mean, like if you don't like these Batman movies, like Tim Burton's impression and interpretation, okay, there's lots of other ones, and that's what's so great. I appreciate like all those different options. So I like when there's different takes. But yeah. Okay, well, I'm thinking then that maybe we're to our last couple of questions here. So, to kind of summarize what we've been talking about over the last hour or so, what is it about this film that keeps you coming back to it?
I think it's a combination. It is the fact that this is Tim Burton's ultimate statement on the Batman mythos. I think that for the fact that it is both a Batman Christmas movie as well as, like I said, sort of the anti-Christmas movie. And I just love that it is so wonderfully weird and bizarre and gothic. There is no other Batman comic book film like it in existence. There probably never will be again. And I just love that it sort of has grown in reputation over the years. Now, again, when I first saw this film, I was not aware of the backlash or the canceling of the Happy Meals and all of that. But obviously, as I got older, I became aware of the controversy and all of the faux outrage that was directed at this film. But I'm delighted to see, as someone who has always been a fan, kind of from the first time that I've seen it, that people have come around on this film, and it was sort of first evident when the most recent Batman movie came out, The Batman, where there was a lot of reevaluation pieces and a lot of discussion, even amongst the cast, where a lot of people point to Batman Returns as a favorite. So I kind of like that it's getting its reappraisals and reevaluations. And again, like I said, we're at that time of year, so if you're looking for something that's not It's a Wonderful Life or Miracle on 34th Street, might I suggest Batman Returns for a different kind of Christmas movie, but one that may give you all the holiday feels in a different way.
Yeah, no, well said. I remember I was unaware of the controversy as well. I remember like talking to my uncle about it, my uncle Gil, and I was like, "Oh, I love Batman Returns," and he's like, "I hate these. They're so dark and da da da," and like that was like my first window into some of that. But it's I don't know, it's really refreshing when you're younger. You're so oblivious to all of the other takes, and you get to have your own authentic take in a lot of ways. I miss that time in my life where I could just walk into a movie with my own opinion, and I try to as much as I possibly can. Um, so I completely agree with you there. If you were to pitch this to someone, like they had never seen these movies before, what would you say about Batman Returns?
Do not go in expecting it to be like any other Batman movie if you have seen them.
Yeah.
And I would just say enjoy the ride. I think this is one of those films where you can't go in, particularly if you are even a quasi student of the mythos. You can't go in with a little checkbox and list, well, wait a minute, that's not right, or wait, where's Robin? Like, just enjoy the art of it. I think this is the perfect kind of artistic expression that has kind of gotten away from comic book movies, where people just sort of go in now, they expect them to check certain boxes, and kind of you leave, oh, we had our fill and now we move on. And this one, it stays with you. And I think if you can enjoy it for the ride of it, and just kind of, I don't want to say not necessarily feel, don't think, but just sort of let yourself kind of be immersed in the world of it, I think you'll have a hell of a time.
I would agree with that. I think sometimes these days I hear sometimes even other fans of like superhero films talk a little bit about that superhero fatigue, and I think a lot of that is around checking all these boxes. Okay, you've got to show their origin, and they've got to have this moment, and then we have to spend time where they're training, and like all those things that after a while in those films you're like, I've seen this before. Like there's not another superhero film like this one. Like there just isn't. And whether it resonates with you or not, it is unique. So, give it a shot. And if you're worried about like a very specific Batman that you feel he has to be told this way, then this is an Elseworld movie and enjoy it that way, right? Like I think there's room for all of it. And yeah, I think it's one of Tim Burton's best films, like you said, and you should watch it and enjoy it, and you should do it around Christmas, even though it's a little bit of a downer. Like, I
Just a
think
little
it's
bit.
okay.
Just a little bit.
It's funny because like I don't think I ever even thought about that, Phil, until we talked about that today. Like, I just always think of it like, oh, this is a Batman movie I like, but you're like, this is like really dark. I'm like, it is. Maybe I'm just okay with dark things. So if you like dark things, maybe you'll like this movie. I don't know.
Well said.
Well, thank you so much, Phil, for taking the time to be on this podcast. This has been a great conversation and have really appreciated talking to you about this wonderful film. Is there anything that you want to plug before we say goodbye?
Well, Lisa, thank you for the opportunity today. Again, this was a lot of fun, and we'll definitely have to get you on my show at some point
Yes, I would
in
love that.
2026. Yeah, definitely make that
Absolutely.
happen. But if you all haven't had your fill of me today, again, would love for you to follow my show, Phil at the Movies. I also am a co-host on two other shows. One is DC Unlimited, which I co-host with my buddies Chris and Anthony, where we talk all things DC movies,
Great.
comics, etc. And then actually launching this week. I'm doing another show with my buddy Nick, and we're sort of combining both of our shows for Nick Flicks and Phil at the Movies. And that'll be
Oh, that's awesome.
be kind of a monthly or a bi-monthly show where we'll just sort of get together and not necessarily talk about a movie per se. We may review some current ones down the road, but it'll mostly just be kind of a back and forth discussion of news of the day, or just sort of talking about movies in general, doing some rankings, and just sort of having a great time talking about the things that are very near and dear to both of our hearts.
Well, that's wonderful. And yes, absolutely want to have you back on the show, and would be honored to be on your podcast as well. Thank you so much, and hopefully we'll talk soon.
Pleasure. Thank you again.